Hello and welcome to another To It for Media feature interview. I'm Jhaka, your host, and today I am joined by Director of the Department of Disaster Management, Mr. Jason Penn, and Meteorologist, Mr. Andrew Jackson, for a discussion on hurricane preparedness and the outlook of the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season. Stay tuned because you do not want to miss it.
When you're in need of air conditioning, installation, repairs, or replacement services, Markinson Air Conditioning and Refrigeration has the professional technicians, equipment, parts, and ACs to get the job done right. Markinson Air Conditioning and Refrigeration carries top brands like Daikin, Aircon, Mitsubishi, and more. We're open Monday to Saturday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Located in Fish Bay. Telephone 340-4114 or 343-9511. Markinson Air Conditioning and Refrigeration, providing exceptional services to the British Virgin Islands since 2015.
Father Jesus, that line here long like church service.
Alright, you enjoy the rest of the day. Next customer line, please. Wait, hold on a second.
Yes, Sonny boy, come, yes, son.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sonny boy. Hold on there. You must have cut fun topic.
It's okay, I'll take care of it.
What? No man to take care of me.
How may I assist you? You want top of power?
You want top of power?
Join the prepaid party with CCT and enjoy more affordable data plans, more top-up promotions, more savings with hero bundles, and more value for your money each and every Tuesday with Top Up Turn Up Tuesday. Visit a CCT store today or anywhere CCT Top Up is sold and top up your phone.
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. You want top of power?
Rashford made it. Manchester United have come from behind to lead.
At home or on the go, watch CCT Live. Download our app and carry your favorite TV shows, news, or live sports anywhere you go. Visit cctbvi.com/live, select your package, and tune in.
Welcome back and thank you so much for staying with us. We begin today's discussions with Director of the Department of Disaster Management, Mr. Jason Penn. Mr. Penn, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here today.
All right. Now, I know that the DDM stays rather busy. Of course, it's not just managing and keeping track of everything happening with the weather. There are earthquakes, there are tsunami preparedness, a lot of things going on to prepare the Virgin Islands for any possible disaster. So that is something that keeps your department very busy. But of course, during the months, I believe June to November, the Atlantic hurricane season kind of spikes things up because in the Caribbean, I mean, we're in a unique position and it's kind of a part of everyday life here to be ready for hurricanes, especially with climate change. We're seeing stronger storms as of recent and more frequent development of storms. So tell us, walk us through what a year, I should say, looks like for the DDM and what the daily activities of the department might look like.
Thank you for posing that question, it is a very good one because persons tend to think that the DDM only operates for hurricane season or just hurricanes. The Department of Disaster Management is a coordinating agency that looks at the plans, the National Disaster Management Plan of the territory. We provide training. We look at various policies. It's sort of the department that gears the entire country in terms of coordination when it comes to particular hazards. I'll expound on that a little bit more. So there's a National Emergency Operations Center and there's the Department of Disaster Management. The Department of Disaster Management is our department that does all the things that I just highlighted there to you. When we're activated as a National Emergency Operations Center, what that does, it pulls in the different arms of the government, as well as our private sector stakeholders, partners, even NGOs or international partners as well. So it activates a mechanism that allows a greater coordination effort depending on the magnitude of the hazard that we are facing. A part of that arm too as well is the National Disaster Management Council. And at that level, the council deals with policy and other action item issues, which includes different subcommittees that are headed by permanent secretaries. That under the umbrella of those committees, you would have different government organizations, volunteer groups, NGOs, private sector, who would sit on these various committees and they will look at particular issues or things that needs to be addressed that would then come to this committee, where if there's a need for a specific action or if there's a need for a specific change in policy, it can be discussed there at that particular council meeting. The council is chairmaned by the governor, and the deputy chair is the premier. And that is the difference between the Department of Disaster Management, National Emergency Operations Center, and the National Disaster Management Council. And I should also indicate that there's a Disaster Management Act. So there's legislation that also guides the disaster management activities and programs within the territory.
All right. Now, so far, I mean, we're in July now, and we're about a month into what is officially known as the Atlantic hurricane season. How have things been like so far?
Well, as you would have seen, we would have had at least a number of storms that have developed. And luckily, there were misses, but with the development of those storms, it's an indication that persons should have started or completed their preparedness measures, because as we move further into the season, moving on specifically around September 10th, which is typically the peak point, you would see a lot more vigorous and stronger storms and hurricanes developing around that point. As you've seen, based on the development that we've had, records continue to be broken. These two particular systems that were developed very far east. I think it was the first recorded in the history of the tracking these systems that they've developed. Two of them developed so far out. Okay. So although forecasters have indicated that there would be somewhat normal or below average season, which I'll let Mr. Jackson speak about a lot more in detail, he still should continue to make up preparations. He still should pay attention to the information that is coming out from the department and make every effort to be ready as we go further into the Atlantic 2023 hurricane season.
Right now, on the topic of preparedness, what are the recommended methods from the DDM that one could use to secure their homes and their belongings in the event of an approaching storm?
That's a very good question. Now, in terms of securing your homes, there's two things that you should consider. You can consider putting shutters on your home. They can be bought or they can be custom made. That's one avenue of safeguarding your homes. For homes that I would say those that have insurance, now would be the time for you to actually look at your policy, see what your policy entails, understand what your policy covers, so that you'll have that peace of mind knowing that you're covered. Yeah. For the homeowners that do not have insurance, at least they should have some type of contingency plan and how they expect to repair or fix their homes
in the event
it was damaged. Those are two things that homeowners can do, but there's more that can be done in terms of right now where things are very quiet.
Yeah.
Walking around your homes, making sure that the drainage areas are cleared, looking at your downspouts, looking at the trees, particular trees depends on the size. They can snap, they can damage your home when there's high wind. You can also, you know, make various spot checks on your roof. For instance, I would give you that in my preparation, I had to check my own home and realized there was a section that needed to be replaced. So that's an indication that sometimes things may look
They look
okay
fine,
from
yeah.
on the ground, but when you actually go up and take a visual, you see that there might be a little bit more that needs to be done. So while now is the peacetime and things are pretty slow, people should start to check their homes at least. In terms of their family, what they should be concentrating on for their family is ensuring that there's some type of emergency plan and ensuring that the family knows what that plan entails. If there's a need for a template, we have multiple different plans that can be accessed via our website, bviddm.com. They can visit our website, they can download different templates. If they cannot find a particular template, they can also call us at 284-468-4200. That's the phone number for the office, where staff can assist. But I'll just go back a little bit in terms of what that plan should entail. That plan should entail things like what type of food, the amount of water is usually recommended. That if you can safeguard maybe 3 days supply of water, and food, that's a good start. You should ensure that your particular documents, your passports, other certificates, that you have them kept in watertight containers. Don't forget your medications, very important. You should keep track of your medications, ensure that you have an adequate supply, because as we know, depending on the magnitude of the system, the storm or the hurricane, you're not sure exactly when stores would open back up. And also, you have to bear in mind that you are not the only one preparing. If you wait too late, persons who are preparing as well can go deplete that supply of medication and you can't get any. So those are just some of the key things that you should have inside of that kit. And in terms of what would be a good mechanism to have that we still sometimes tend to take for granted, a simple transistor radio, and ensuring that there are batteries to put in that radio. So if the power goes and everything else goes, you can use your radio to tune in to the local radio stations, the frequencies, so you can receive emergency information.
All right. Now, another thing that is often spoken about, including in your home preparedness plan, is the name of your nearest shelter and possibly a plan for how to get there. Is that something that would be recommended?
Sure. I mean, we recently published the shelter listing. Now would be a good time for persons to actually look at the shelter listing, and so they would know exactly where the shelters are located and how close they are to them. They should, in identifying their shelter, what they would need to take there with them. A grab bag is a very good item to have. If you need to go to a shelter, you would include some of the actual essentials that I mentioned. But what persons can do, even though you mentioned the shelter, they can identify a shelter, or as part of the planning process, they can decide if there are family members who they can stay with, or if they would shelter in place. But if they have to move to a shelter, now would be a good time to look at the list that was published. The shelters have different levels, primary, secondary, and tertiary. So once they look at the list that we publish, those particular itemized, the way they're itemized that I just highlighted, will tell them which shelter would be suitable for their needs based on the location that they live.
Okay. Now, since we're speaking about shelters, and of course, persons moving to a shelter is often in the case of them feeling unsafe staying in their homes, or their homes may have been damaged in a way that the wind and the water are coming through and they need to shelter their family. They're not able to shelter in place. That would suggest that possible evacuation. Would that be the right term to use in that effect? Because usually evacuation suggests a large movement of people. But if one has to leave their home, would that constitute as an evacuation of the home? And along with that question, what kind of preparation needs to be done in the home, information-wise, to prepare for evacuation?
Well, very good question as well. If individuals are going to evacuate their home, the first thing they should do is secure their home. Is to make sure that if they have shutters and they have to put them up, even though they feel that their home may be compromised, still put their shutters up, still ensure that their home is secure, because you never know.
Yeah.
Once you leave your home, persons can double back and go into your home. If you have gas cylinders, you should ensure that
They're
stuff
off.
like that are off. Plug out different appliances from within the home before you leave. You should remember to do that as well. And in terms of securing your home even further, then of course I think I mentioned the shutter before, and I would say those are the key things that I see that you need to do when you're leaving your home at this point. Yeah.
And in terms of moving an entire family from a home, we have to consider the fact that a lot of people have young children, and this could be a lot for them to process in the time. So in what ways do you think families can educate and prepare young children for the possibility of an emergency situation where they have to evacuate their homes quickly?
I think what families can do to assist the young ones is when they're making the emergency plan, as small as they are, once they can speak, they can have them involved within developing that plan. So one of the things they can do for the younger kids is ensure that they know they know their full name. Ensure that they know their parents' names. There may be phone numbers that they can remember. Ensure that they know those as well. When you're going through the process of packing the grab bag and securing the items, involve them as well. Let them put something in so they could have buy-in in terms of preparing to leave the homes. And also, don't forget that young kids are not like us adults. You need to have things to keep them occupied. So whether extra batteries for whatever gadget that you have for them, board games,
Activity
a book,
books.
activities, you need to have all those things to keep their young minds occupied and ensure that they understand, or try to ensure that they understand as best as possible what's happening, so they don't feel scared and get a sense of anxiety, and allowing them to feel at least safe that we are together as a family. And this is the process that we have to go through in terms of writing out the emergency or the disaster.
And what about pets? Because I'm not too sure if the shelters would be pet friendly. I don't think that's a major consideration a lot of the time. Persons who would have beloved family pets and need to evacuate their homes. What kind of recommendations are made?
Well, most of the shelters do not, I would say, accept pets. But what you can do before leaving home, make sure that there's an adequate food supply, adequate water supply for your pet, so that they can at least have something to drink, something to eat. Don't leave them tied or in a location where they could harm themselves. And I know what persons have done in the past is maybe have allowed their pets to roam free, but my suggestion would be is to ensure that your pet have as much food supply as possible, so that after the passing of whatever the system is, you can go back and make a check on them to see how they're doing.
All right. Now, earlier on, you mentioned the DDM's website. Could you just run through that for us again? And what other platforms does the DDM use to share its information where people can access updates?
Okay. So with our website, the URL is www.bviddm.com. That would have plans. It would have updated information that we push out. It would have information pertaining to the shelters or anything that we deem that are important that the public should know in terms of emergencies. We also launched a new app which can be accessed via the Google Play Store as well as Apple, as well as the Apple Store as well. So they would just have to search for DDM Alert. Our logo would show up and they can download it. And this has been an upgrade to our previous app. So I would encourage persons to get that as well. We also have a presence on Facebook, on Twitter, we have a YouTube page, and we also have a presence on Instagram. And of course, we partner with various media outlets, of course, where we push the information via the radio stations. We have the partnerships with the service providers, where we also push information via SMS.
Okay.
So those are some of the mediums that we use for persons to receive information from us, as well as seek information if they need it.
All right, amazing. Now, in closing for this part of the interview, are there any final notes that you'd like to make?
The final note I would like to make is that although things are quiet right now, I would encourage persons to move quickly and make their preparations. We have a saying that it only takes one system or one hurricane to wreak havoc and create damage. I'll also encourage persons to, if they can, volunteer. Support our service groups if you can. Support our organizations who typically give back to those that are vulnerable. And also assist or support those that are vulnerable as well. And let's be prepared for the high point of the season when it comes. And we're hoping for, as usual, nothing, but we make all the preparations in the event there is.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today, Mr. Penn.
Thank you.
All right. We head to a quick commercial break, following which we sit with Mr. Andrew Jackson, meteorologist. Stay tuned, you don't want to miss it.
So tonight, I am an international musician and also a bandman. Let's go behind the scenes. This is how I live my life. Unlimited with CCT.
So you're saying I can ask this cat any question?
The cat is connected to the computer. You just type in the question, it will read his mind. There the answer comes.
You're the man! I've been looking for this for weeks.
Yo, everything good, Dad?
Aye. This thing got me one way, Daddy.
What do you mean?
Ever since I hook up with this thing, I can't eat, I can't sleep. This is the first thing I touch it when I reach home.
What do you really? Hey, this ain't like you, know.
Dad, this thing got me staying home, keeping out of trouble me.
Wow. What your name is?
Shit. I talking about my CCT life.
Don't worry about missing your favorite series, sports, news, and local programming. Come to CCT today and sign up for CCT Live to access over 80 channels. CCT Live. Bring it home.
1 month free trial turn into 5. 5 months turn into, well, you know I huff. I watching ball. I been watching football. Dad, Nickelodeon, Paw Patrol. I am hooked. Hook, I tell you.
Welcome back and thank you so much for staying with us. Right now on set, we are joined by Mr. Andrew Jackson, meteorologist here in the Virgin Islands. Mr. Jackson, how are you doing?
I'm well, thanks.
All right. Now, that's a big job.
Yes, it is.
To handle, especially during the hurricane season. Everyone's eyes are on the skies, and of course, that's what you do all the time. So I'm sure
Right.
it must be exciting.
Yes, it's very exciting. I mean, being able to keep the public abreast of what is going on, sharing my knowledge and all of that, it's pretty fun.
All right, amazing stuff. Now, of course, the big topic right now is the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season. From your views, I mean, in your profession, what are things supposed to look like, or how are they shaping up so far?
All right, so currently we are expecting to have a near normal season. Previously, given the fact that we are going into what is called an El Nino year, they normally say that during an El Nino year, we tend to have fewer storms developing. But for this current Atlantic season, there's another factor that is added to the mix: abnormally high sea surface temperatures. So let me give you a gist of how this goes and how it works. All right, so in an El Nino here, what actually happens is that we tend to have a stronger vertical wind shear in the region. So think about a storm that's passing. What the wind shear does is that it comes down and take off the tops of these storms. So as soon as these storms try to develop, it tends to break that storm down. Now with the other factor, the high sea surface temperatures now, that is a fuel for storms. So what that does, it just keeps it bubbling up and have a high level of convectivity. So if you should be looking or paying attention, you realize that there are two conflicting factors. So even though we're having an El Nino year, that we will be expecting fewer storms, we are having a opposite factor there that is boosting storms. So that's why they're saying it might just balance out to be a near normal hurricane season.
All right. So far, I've noted 2 named storms, the most recent being Brett.
Actually, it's 3.
That's 3.
It's 3. We had Arlene, we had Brett, and we had Cindy.
Okay.
Fortunately for us, we have not been severely been impacted by them. But I would like to point out that even though we are not being impacted currently, we should make sure that we are being prepared at all times.
All right, amazing. Now, in terms of the positioning of the BVI, I note that what's currently being used is the Met Office in Antigua, providing the updates. And of course, there's the initiative of the local Met Office coming up. How do you think that's gonna better the territory's ability to monitor weather systems?
I'm glad you made that point, because as you mentioned, we currently do not have our own Met unit, and we operate kind of in partnership with the Antigua and Barbuda Met Service, where they do the forecasting, and we ensure that everyone in the Virgin Islands have access to it through our various websites and our social media platform. Now, with me being here, this is where things will get a little different, because I will be the person on the ground that will assist the process with Antigua, and also will be a big part in the development of our own Met unit here. And what that will do is improve the efficiency of our unit and our system, in the sense that we'll be the one doing the forecasting, so information will get out a lot quicker. And we have a lot of people to serve. As we all know, BVI is the sailing capital of the world, and we have to cater to our marine interests. So it would be crucial, and it's also very important, that we get our Met Office or our Met Service up as soon as possible, and that's what we're aiming to achieve in the near future.
All right. Now, one of the things that happens a lot with forecasting storms across the Caribbean, they say it's like people more want the storms to come, because when they tell you a storm is coming, you're looking out for it, and it's almost like the anticipation, it's killing people, because you're like, oh, where is the storm? From your experience as a meteorologist, where do you lie on that debate? Are you pleased when the storms suddenly change path and don't come, or are you looking out for the rain?
All right, I would say it's twofold for me.
Okay.
All right, as the scientist or the meteorologist, we anticipate these things because, I mean, we study about these things. So to see them in effect and actually experiencing it, it's actually fun. Because think about the guys who go on the Hurricane Hunter. I can just imagine being directly in the
rush.
right. So being directly in that storm, you get that drive. But on the other hand, being a citizen or a resident per se, you still have to be mindful that, boy, I don't want too much of this rain.
Precisely.
We wouldn't necessarily want it to totally miss because as it's currently here in the BVI, it's pretty warm.
Yeah.
And it would be good if now and then we could get some of that rain, right?
Especially for the farming, for those farming, we don't want the hillsides to get too dry or anything like that.
Because currently, what's happening in the Atlantic is that the tropical waves are coming across, so we need to be mindful, and they're coming across a lot stronger. So the conditions are not fully favorable. So if you realize, even like approaching us now, we have a tropical wave in the making, so we should be getting some rainfall with a little thunderstorm activity. So, I mean, we should still be prepared at all times.
Okay. In what ways do you recommend to people to keep updated with what's going on? I know the DDM offers frequent updates to their Facebook page. A lot of people tend to use the radar maps available online. What kind of recommendations would you make?
All right, for persons in the BVI, a good example of a site or a source to pay attention to is the DDM website and our social media platforms, because we cater to the persons here in the territory and we give credible information. For further information, you could visit the Antigua Met website, even the NOAA website.
Yeah.
Those are sites that are credible, that gives credible information and accurate information. And we should be mindful that not everything we see posted on social media is truthful, because we have some very unscrupulous persons out there that are seeking attention, so we should be mindful of that. So that's why I would redirect you guys to the DDM website, because we would be putting out information that is valid, accurate, and credible.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today, Mr. Jackson. You have any final notes you'd like to make before we close off?
All right. In closing, it only takes one storm to create damage, so always be prepared. And also, it doesn't take a storm only. It could just be a simple rain event. So we should always be prepared. Seeing that nothing much is happening at this time, take this time to get ready, so that whenever something actually is about to approach us or have a chance of impacting us, we are just ready to go. We're not just preparing, we will be already ready. All right?
That's a very important point you made there. Thank you so much for your time again.
All right, thanks for having me.
And thank you all for watching. Stay tuned to Tweet for Media because there is more great content coming up.